In my opinion, every consumer should know where their stuff comes from, and every designer should really understand their role in the production and distribution of the artifacts that we design. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about supply chains and talking about how stuff gets made and how it gets to consumers. Let me start with an example. This is the spin brush, which I bought for $8.99 US dollars, about $9 US dollars, here at my local CVS, which is a US chain. Actually, it's a global chain that is considered a drugstore or a pharmacy, but also sells many other consumer goods. So this is the spin brush, and the spin brush is manufactured by a company called Church & Dwight. Church & Dwight, although called the manufacturer, may or may not actually produce this object, but you could think of them as the brand owner in this case. So the spin brush is available in CVS for $8.99 or about $9, and it's a battery-powered electric toothbrush. And in another module, we're going to talk quite a bit about the cost structure of this artifact and how it's actually made, and I'll take it apart and show you what's inside. But for now, I just want to talk about how it gets to that CVS. This object is made in a factory in China. It's made in extremely high volume in very large quantities. It's assembled by hand, largely by women and by young women on an assembly line. I don't have video of the assembly line, but I'm going to link in the module here a YouTube video that shows a nice example of manual assembly by a young woman in China. In the case of the video I'm going to link to, it's of the assembly of a different device, but it'll give you a sense of what assembly operations are like in factories like that in China. Now, the supply chain for the United States is somewhat idiosyncratic to this particular location, but it's remarkably similar to the supply chains throughout the world, even in the developing world. So in this case, this object is produced in China, and actually China produces the consumer goods for much of the world. But in most cases, the goods themselves will be produced in a relatively low-wage economic environment, and in this case, it happens to be China. The goods go directly from the factory to a container ship, and then they travel across the Pacific Ocean. Now, a container ship, there's one shown here, is a remarkable invention that relies on the containerization of goods. And a shipping container is a standard module. It's basically a box that is, and it's standardized around in English units. So it's 8 feet wide by 8 feet tall by 40 feet long. That's about 90 cubic meters. It's a box that you could stand in, reach your arms side to side on, and it would be about 12 and a half meters deep. So a big steel box. And that steel box can hold several hundred thousand, probably about 250,000 of this spin brush, because this takes up relatively small amount of volume. Those containers then are put onto container ships, one shown here. They're stacked below deck, they're stacked on the deck, and they travel across the Pacific Ocean, in this case taking about 15 days to go from a port in Asia to a port in California. One of the major ports in the U.S. is Long Beach, California. That's shown here. And container ships are unloaded with cranes that can very quickly unload the containers off of a ship. And the nice thing about the containerization of goods is that those containers can then go on a truck, or they can go on a rail car. So here is shown a rail car, a German rail car that has shipping containers on it. So the shipping containers will then go over land to a distribution center. And CVS will have distribution centers around the United States, probably a handful of distribution centers around the United States. And pretty much distribution centers all look the same. They're big boxes with places for trucks to go in and out. This one shown here is for the auto parts distributor Napa, but as I say, they all pretty much look the same. Then from a distribution center, a truck will make typically daily or every other daily deliveries to the retail store and will have a variety of goods. So they will probably have 1 or 2 cartons of the spin brush in the truck, but that will be included with that will be potato chips and soft drinks and paper towels and other kinds of things that are sold in the CVS. And so those are the steps in the supply chain from factory typically in a low-wage economic environment all the way through to distribution and retail distribution at your corner store. Now what we're going to turn to is the question of how that price, that is $8.99 retail price, what are the implications of that price for what it must cost the producer to make this artifact back in the factory?